What if I told you the secret to perfect crisp cabbage all winter long isn't about when you plant it in spring, but how you care for it in autumn? That's right. September is the make or break month that determines if your cabbage heads will be firm as a rock or loose and flavourless. Today, we're diving deep into the world of late season cabbage, truly the queen of your autumn garden. I'll reveal all the secrets to caring for and protecting this humble vegetable, transforming it into a true masterpiece of garden art. Late season cabbage isn't just another vegetable, it's your strategic winter supply of vitamins. Unlike its early season counterparts, it's specifically bred for long-term storage. Its mission is to grace your table with crisp salads and hearty stews, even when snow blankets the ground outside. And for it to fulfill that mission perfectly, it absolutely needs our special attention in September. Let's dive into what our autumn cabbage needs step by step. We'll begin with the most fundamental aspect, watering. Throughout summer, we're accustomed to giving our cabbage plenty of water, and rightly so. It was actively growing, putting on foliage, and moisture was absolutely essential. However, come September, the rules of the game shift dramatically. Foliage growth slows down. All the plant's energy is now directed inwards, towards developing a tight, firm head. And this is where excess water, once a friend, becomes its worst enemy. Imagine your cabbage roots perpetually sitting in a soggy, cold bog. They'll start to suffocate, weaken, making them an easy target for rot and fungal diseases. But perhaps the most frustrating outcome of overwatering is the splitting of the cabbage heads themselves. Ever seen those split, unsightly cabbages? In 9 out of 10 cases, excess water is to blame. So remember the golden rule for September. It's always better to underwater slightly than to overwater. Water your cabbage approximately once every 7 to 10 days, but always adjust based on the weather. Always check the soil before watering. If the soil is dry to the depth of your finger, then it's time. If it's still damp, you can confidently put off watering for another couple of days. This brings us to one of the most common blunders, what I call the cabbage delusion. Many gardeners, even in September, keep chasing size, firmly convinced that more water equals a massive head of cabbage. They eye their neighbours' gardens, competing to see who can grow a head the size of a watermelon. But let's pause and consider, are we aiming for a show-stopping record breaker or a high-quality vegetable for long-term winter storage? By overwatering cabbage, we don't achieve density. Instead, we get a loose and watery texture. The leaves inside such a head don't pack tightly. It might look big, but it's essentially hollow. This kind of giant is a prime candidate for rotting in storage. The excess moisture trapped inside creates ideal conditions for bacteria and mould to thrive. Our goal now is to grow a head that's not just big, but dense, heavy, and literally rings with firmness when tapped. Let it be average in size, but as compact as a fist. This sturdy head will last well into spring, maintaining its flavour and crispness. So, let's shift our focus. Quality and density over sheer size. Now let's talk about the soil itself. Aerating the soil around your cabbage heads in September isn't just a finicky gardener's habit. It's a critical practice that directly impacts root health. After watering and those inevitable autumn rains, a dense, hard crust often forms on the soil surface. This crust effectively suffocates the roots by blocking oxygen. Without proper air circulation, the root system weakens, struggles to absorb nutrients, and becomes an easy target for the very rots we dread. When you grab your hoe or a cultivator, you're not just stirring up dirt, you're literally giving your cabbage a chance to breathe. What's more, loose soil better absorbs that precious autumn moisture, preventing it from pooling around the stem and inviting diseases. And here's another welcome bonus. You're simultaneously eliminating those pesky little weeds that are still trying to steal vital nutrients from our prized plants. Just remember, don't get carried away. Cultivate shallowly, just 3 to 5 centimetres deep, to avoid damaging those crucial surface roots that are so vital right now. This simple action is the cornerstone of healthy roots and, by extension, a bountiful, high-quality harvest. Now what about feeding your cabbage? This is where many gardeners make a common and often heartbreaking mistake. Throughout summer, we actively fed our cabbage nitrogen to encourage those beautiful large leaves. And that was absolutely the right thing to do. But come September, nitrogen becomes poison. You absolutely must not give your cabbage any organic fertilizers like cow manure tea or chicken droppings, nor any mineral fertilizers such as urea or ammonium nitrate. What does nitrogen do? It promotes vigorous leafy growth. While that was exactly what we wanted in summer, now it will lead to disaster. Instead of firming up and getting ready for winter storage, the cabbage head will start to loosen from the inside, and its leaves will become watery and tender. This type of cabbage becomes an irresistible feast for slugs and caterpillars, and it will be completely unsuitable for long-term storage. What's more, an excess of nitrogen in September weakens the plant's natural defences, leaving it highly susceptible to fungal diseases. Remember, once autumn arrives, we completely cut nitrogen from our cabbage's feeding regimen. It's like taking sweets out of an athlete's diet before a big competition. Your cabbage needs a completely different nutritional plan now. Let's take a closer look at this nitrogen trap. Imagine your plant as a construction site. Nitrogen acts like the workers responsible for building the walls. That is, for the growth of leaves and stems. During summer, you needed plenty of these workers to construct a large, robust frame for your plant. But by September, construction needs to shift to a new phase: interior finishing. You want the head to become dense, accumulate sugars and vitamins, and prepare for long-term storage. If you keep supplying the site with the same construction workers, that is nitrogen, they'll become confused and start erecting flimsy new partitions, ultimately weakening the entire structure. The plant gets confused. Instead of channeling all its energy into ripening, it wastes it on the senseless growth of new loose leaves. The result is a head that looks beautiful on the outside, but is completely hollow inside, and to make matters worse, it's loaded with nitrates. This is a direct consequence of ill-timed fertilization. Remember, the fertilizer that was so beneficial in summer can become your worst enemy in September, ruining your entire harvest. Alright, so we've got nitrogen covered. What's the perfect meal for our cabbage now? Its new best friends are two other crucial elements: phosphorus and potassium. These aren't just fertilizers, they're like personal trainers, getting our leafy queen ready for winter's challenges. Phosphorus is crucial for developing a strong, healthy root system, and robust roots are key to ensuring the plant can absorb all the essential micronutrients it needs from the soil. Potassium, on the other hand, is the architect behind the head's armour. It helps cells accumulate dry matter and sugars, resulting in denser, firmer, and wonderfully crisp leaves. Potassium is precisely what gives cabbage its excellent storability, allowing it to keep well for months. Together, phosphorus and potassium significantly boost the plant's overall immunity, enhancing its resistance to diseases and frost. For September's feeding, ideal options include monopotassium phosphate or potassium sulfate combined with superphosphate. You can also use wood ash, which is not only rich in potassium, but also contains a wealth of other beneficial micronutrients. This is precisely what your cabbage needs to withstand the cold confidently and maintain its crisp quality for months to come. Let's visualize this. Picture cabbage roots getting ready for winter. During summer, they were delicate, thread-like structures, eagerly soaking up moisture to help the leaves grow. But now, thanks to phosphorus, they're becoming thicker, stronger, and penetrating deeper into the soil. They're essentially building up reserves of strength for the future. This is their vital foundation for the cold season ahead. Now let's turn our attention to the cabbage head itself. Potassium, as it enters the leaves, acts like a skilled packer. It extracts excess water, replacing it with sugars and vital nutrients within the cells. The leaves become denser, almost pressed together. This is precisely why a properly fed cabbage head feels so heavy and firm to the touch. It's not just filled with water, it's packed with concentrated goodness. This sugar armour not only enhances the flavour, but also helps the cabbage endure the first frosts, acting as a natural antifreeze. So, proper fertilization isn't just food. It's a comprehensive program designed to prepare your harvest for long, successful storage. But looking after them is only half the battle. Come September, our succulent heads become the target of a real hunt, and the first, most brazen and ravenous enemy are caterpillars, the larvae of the cabbage white butterfly, that seemingly harmless white insect, and the cutworms from the cabbage looper, which emerge at night for their feast, can turn a firm cabbage head into a veritable colander in a matter of days. They tunnel deep inside, leaving behind their droppings, which inevitably leads to rot and the complete ruination of your harvest. Using strong chemical pesticides in September is no longer advisable, as the harvest will soon be on our dinner tables. That's why we turn to proven and safe methods. Inspect your cabbage heads regularly. If you spot small holes on the leaves, that's your first red flag. It's time to act quickly before these pests burrow deep into the heads, making them almost impossible to remove. Don't underestimate these little munchers. Their appetite only increases in cooler weather. So how do we keep those pesky garden invaders off our plants without harsh chemicals? Fortunately, there are several highly effective natural solutions. First up, try dusting. Mix equal parts wood ash and tobacco dust. In the morning, while dew is still on the leaves, generously dust the tops of your cabbage heads with this mixture. The fine particles will cling to the leaves, creating utterly unbearable conditions for caterpillars. They simply hate both the taste and smell of this coating. Secondly, you can prepare a homemade spray. Combine 2 tablespoons of mustard powder and 2 tablespoons of salt. Dissolve them in 10 litres of water. Add a splash of liquid soap to help it stick, then thoroughly spray your cabbage plants on all sides. Caterpillars absolutely detest this spicy sauce. Finally, for lighter infestations, the simplest method is hand picking. Just put on some gloves, inspect your cabbage heads, and gently pick off any caterpillars you find. These methods do require regular attention, but they are completely safe for both you and your crops. But caterpillars aren't the only culprits you need to worry about. There's another enemy that emerges under the cover of darkness, leaving behind telltale glistening slime trails and massive holes in your leaves. Of course, I'm talking about slugs. These slimy saboteurs thrive in damp, autumnal weather and have a particular fondness for tender cabbage leaves. By day, they hide away in cool, damp, secluded spots, only to emerge at dusk for their nightly feast. They're especially drawn to young, newly forming cabbage heads. These pests can completely ruin the marketability of your cabbage in a single night. It's both possible and necessary to combat them by setting up insurmountable barriers. The key is a systematic approach, as slugs are incredibly persistent and will quickly exploit any weaknesses in your defences. Don't wait until they've devoured half your crop. At the first telltale signs of their presence, those distinctive holes and glistening trails, start taking action immediately. How can you create impenetrable barriers against slugs using the simplest materials? One of the most effective methods is to mulch the soil around your cabbage plants with something sharp and dry. Slugs have very delicate undersides and absolutely hate moving across sharp surfaces. Sprinkle a ring of crushed eggshells, fine gravel, crushed seashells, or even coarse sand around the base of each cabbage plant. Pine needles also work wonderfully. Their sharp texture and scent deter these pests. You can also create another barrier by sprinkling mustard powder or cayenne pepper around the plants. Setting up traps is another great option. In the evening, place old boards, pieces of slate, or wet rags near your garden bed. Slugs will crawl under them to hide during the day, and in the morning, all you'll need to do is collect your harvest of pests. These simple yet highly effective methods will help protect your cabbage without the need for harmful chemicals. Beyond the obvious external threats, we also face invisible enemies, diseases. When it comes to autumn cabbage, the biggest scourge is various forms of rot, particularly grey and white rot. These fungal diseases absolutely thrive in the cool, damp weather, so typical of September. Overcrowded plants, persistent moisture on leaves, and weeds all create the perfect microclimate for fungal growth. The disease begins subtly, often with small, watery spots on the lower leaves, which then quickly become covered in a telltale grey, fuzzy mould. This rot rapidly penetrates deep inside the cabbage head. By harvest time, a seemingly healthy-looking cabbage can be completely ruined from within. Once the disease has taken hold, fighting it is incredibly difficult. That's why prevention is our main priority. We need to eliminate any chance for the fungus to survive. Believe it or not, the key to beating plant diseases often isn't about endless spraying, but simply about proper air circulation. Rot-causing fungi just can't get a foothold where the air flows freely and leaves dry fast. If your cabbage patch looks like an impenetrable jungle, with leaves tangled and lying on top of each other, you're essentially creating the perfect breeding ground for diseases. In these conditions, moisture lingers for extended periods, especially after rain or heavy morning dew. So what's the solution? It's simple. You need to ensure proper ventilation. A straightforward cultivation technique we're about to discuss can save your harvest more effectively than any fungicide. The key is the timely removal of lower leaves. This action not only improves air circulation, but also eliminates a potential source of infection, as old, weakened leaves are often the first to fall victim to fungi. The technique we're discussing is removing the lower, yellowed leaves. However, it's crucial to do this wisely to avoid harming the plant. Some gardeners get a bit carried away, stripping away almost all the wrapper leaves and leaving the cabbage head practically naked. They mistakenly believe this forces all the plant's energy into the developing head. This is a grave mistake. Every healthy green leaf acts as a small factory, using photosynthesis to produce nutrients for the entire plant, including the developing head. By removing them unnecessarily, you're actually robbing the cabbage of its strength. Our goal is to remove only what truly hinders its growth. Firstly, this includes leaves that have already yellowed or begun to dry out. They've already served their purpose and are now just a burden. Secondly, and most importantly, remove any leaves that are lying directly on the soil. These leaves, especially in wet weather, act as a bridge for diseases and infections to travel from the soil to the plant. Proper sanitation trimming like this is key to ensuring healthy plants and clean garden beds. So, when's the ideal time, and what's the proper technique for removing those outer cabbage leaves, ensuring it truly benefits your plants rather than stressing them out? The best time for this task is a dry, sunny day. This is crucial because you want the point of detachment to dry quickly in the open air, preventing it from becoming an entry point for infections. Never do this in wet or rainy weather. The process itself is very straightforward. There's no need for knives or pruning shears here. Simply grasp the leaf firmly at its very base, right where it attaches to the main stalk, and pull it downwards with a good, strong snap. It should detach with a satisfying pop or snap. Be careful not to pull sideways or upwards, as this can easily damage the central stalk. Only remove the lowest tier of leaves, typically just 2 or 3 that are either touching the ground or have clearly turned yellow. There's no need to strip the stalk too high up. Once you've done this, the soil beneath your cabbage head will enjoy much better air circulation and dry out more effectively, significantly reducing the risk of rot. Repeat this process as needed, roughly every week to week and a half, as you check on your plants. Now let's dive into something truly fascinating: the first frosts. For many gardeners, these can be a source of dread. As soon as the forecast mentions overnight temperatures dropping to freezing or just below, they often panic, rushing out to harvest all their cabbage, even heads that haven't fully matured. It's a natural fear of losing their crop. But what if I told you that for late-season cabbage, a light frost isn't an enemy at all, but actually a huge benefit? Of course, I'm not referring to severe freezes, say, -5 to 7 degrees Celsius, which can certainly damage the heads. Instead, a brief dip in temperature, down to 1, 2, or even 3 degrees Celsius below freezing, doesn't just leave late varieties unharmed, it actually makes them considerably better. This is a natural process, hardwired into the genetics of these plants. Our role isn't to interfere, but to understand it and use it to our advantage. So, don't be too quick to harvest. Let nature work its magic. So, what's the amazing sugary secret behind cabbage's deliciousness? It's all quite simple and logical, actually. When air temperatures drop below freezing, the plant perceives this as a stressful event, a clear signal that winter is arriving. To protect its cells from damage caused by ice crystals, it triggers an emergency defense mechanism. Inside the leaves, an active process of starch hydrolysis kicks into gear. Complex carbohydrates previously stored in the leaves and largely flavourless are broken down into simple sugars, glucose and fructose. These sugars increase the concentration of the cell sap, thereby lowering its freezing point. Essentially, the plant produces its own natural antifreeze, and for us, the consumers, this has the most delightful side effect. Cabbage that's been kissed by a light frost becomes noticeably sweeter, juicier, and loses the characteristic bitterness sometimes found in certain varieties. It develops that perfect, rich flavour so highly prized in winter dishes and fresh salads alike. So how can you tell when a head of cabbage is truly mature and ready for harvest? While waiting for the first frost is a good general rule, there are several other reliable signs you shouldn't overlook. First, check its density. Go up to your cabbage plant and firmly squeeze the head with both hands. If it feels rock solid, firm, and doesn't give way under your fingers, that's a primary indicator of maturity. A loose or soft head, however, still needs more time to develop. Secondly, observe its colour. Mature cabbage varieties often develop a distinct whitish or bluish-grey waxy bloom on their outer wrapper leaves. This bloom acts as a protective layer, signalling that the plant is ready for storage. Thirdly, inspect the lowest wrapper leaf, the largest and oldest one. If it has started to yellow slightly, that's another clear indication that the head's growth is complete. Paying attention to these combined indicators, rather than just relying on the calendar, will tell you precisely when your cabbage is ready for harvest. So once you're confident that your cabbage heads are fully mature, have withstood the first light frosts, and are ready for storage, there's one crucial step before you make that cut. You need to perform a thorough final inspection. Carefully examine each head from all sides. Ensure there are no signs of disease, such as dark spots, sliminess, or any traces of rot. Check the leaves for any pest egg masses or hidden caterpillars that might be tucked away in the folds. Any head showing these signs should absolutely not be stored, as it could quickly contaminate the entire batch. Next, gently tap the head. A mature, dense cabbage will produce a crisp, resonant sound. If the sound is dull or thudding, it could indicate internal hollows or loose leaves. Ideally, harvest your cabbage on a dry day. Using a sharp, long knife, cut the head, leaving a stem, or core, about 3 to 4 centimetres, roughly 1.5 inches, long. Also, leave 2 to 3 of the outer, loosely attached wrapper leaves. These will provide extra protection during storage, and you can simply remove them before use. This thorough, final check is your assurance that only the healthiest, highest quality heads make it into storage. Now let's talk about the most amazing thing. Many gardeners panic at the first frost forecast, rushing to harvest all their cabbage. But here's the plot twist. A light frost, down to about 2 or 3 degrees Celsius, isn't the enemy at all. It's late-season cabbage's best friend. In response to the cold stress, the plant actively converts starches into sugars. This acts as a natural antifreeze, protecting its cells from damage. As a result, your cabbage doesn't just become more cold hardy. It gets noticeably sweeter, juicier, and more flavourful. So, when you see a touch of frost on the leaves, don't panic. Rejoice. Your cabbage is just reaching the peak of its deliciousness. Another game changer is how we treat the lower leaves. There's a common myth that you should strip almost all the extra lower leaves so all the plant's energy goes into the head. That's a huge mistake. Those lower leaves are its solar panels and nutrient factories. You should only remove those that have yellowed or are lying on the ground, as they can encourage rot. By leaving healthy green leaves, you allow the head to grow robustly and accumulate strength right up until harvest. So caring for late-season cabbage in September isn't a battle. It's a wise partnership with nature. Moderate watering, proper potassium phosphorus fertilization, pest protection, and most importantly, not fearing a light frost. By following these simple guidelines, you'll ensure a bountiful harvest of the most delicious, crisp cabbage all winter long. Thanks for watching this video all the way to the end. If you found any of this new or helpful, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more gardening secrets. What are your own tricks for growing late-season cabbage? Or perhaps you've dealt with pests I didn't mention? Share your experiences in the comments below. Let's discuss!